Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. We're going to take a little step away from the majors and step into some minor league baseball. And to help us do that, we're going to bring on Jake Whalen. He runs a popular YouTube channel called MiLB Hatbilly, which tells baseball stories with a bit of a minor league flair. So let's bring him on. So Jake Whalen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, James.
All right, now people can follow you on Twitter at MiLB_Hatbilly. And of course, check out your YouTube channel, MiLB Hatbilly, and catch all your videos. And I guess, you know, you kind of, it's a mixed bag, sort of like little present day stuff, but some minor league talk, some Orioles talk, but as well, you know, I think which is the great is that you specialize in those like random baseball stories. So just tell us a little about your channel.
Yeah, so it seems like here recently I've really hit a stride with kind of going back in the 70s and 80s baseball. It seems like there's not as much on those types of stories. I think primarily because a lot of YouTube creators are so young. And not to age myself, but I'm a little older than those guys. But so the channel got started where I was essentially, it's called Hatbilly. Hatbilly is a play on hillbilly, which I'm from the Appalachian Mountains, and kind of thought it was unique that I was about the only baseball creator I could find from this area. But I actually started with just purchasing hats, building a hat collection. And that got expensive fast. You know, I was getting maybe 20 views per $20 hat purchase. So pivot away from that a little bit and started just telling stories. And then things really started to take off. It just felt more genuine. I was at my best just as a storyteller, I guess, as opposed to someone who's just showing off a hat they bought. So that wasn't really for me, but trial and error is YouTube essentially. So yeah, kind of bounced around, but I think I'm hitting a stride with the history type stuff. So
Yeah, and then
yeah.
the videos are very well done. So like, how long does it take to really produce one of those videos? Because, you know, there's a lot of research and there's, you know, video footage and all that.
Yeah, I spend about an hour per minute of content. So it's time consuming, but it's fun. You know, it's an escape from the day to day. I'm a fish biologist by trade, so producing video content is just as far away as you can get from that. I work outdoors all the time. So it's, you know, on a day off, I just kind of sit in my room and do that. So it's, you know, it's stress relief, which is unexpected when I got into it, but just disappearing in some historic realm of baseball that I was completely unfamiliar with an hour ago and coming out with an end result that, you know, other people seem to enjoy. So it's really cool.
All right, and like, how do you pick these stories? Like, where do you go to find them, or is this something maybe you heard before, but finally you want to like do a little more research in it, or is there a place you go to like find these like this bizarre stories?
The past few have been just things I've stumbled upon in conversation with my dad. The one that kind of recently got some steam was Sammy Stewart's story. He was a Baltimore relief pitcher during their last World Series run, which predated my lifetime, but we were just reminiscing about old Orioles players, and I happened to have seen his name on the internet a day or two before and bounced it off of my dad. And he just kind of hit this moment where it's like, I haven't thought about that guy in 25, 30 years. So you dive in, and more often than not, it's the beauty of the internet. You find way more than you expected to. And that's just kind of how it gets going. Whatever stories I tend to gravitate to, I do a better job with, it seems like. So with Sammy, he was really relatable to me. He grew up near where I grew up. He played for my favorite team, but lo and behold, he ran into some life tragedies, which became addiction problems. And it was a really, really sad story, and possibly the saddest player story in the Orioles franchise. So I was kind of amazed that there wasn't already a video about it. But that's another thing to motivate me to do these videos is like, wow, this is such a great story. Why is this not already on YouTube? And then the wheels start turning a little bit.
Yeah, I watched a part of that, and I think you mentioned he was the only player to actually sell his ring, his championship ring, for drugs, I guess.
Yeah, his championship ring is out there somewhere. I don't remember the source where I read that, but they actually looked into where all those rings ended up, and there's two that have been sold. I don't recall the other player. He was another bullpen guy, but Sammy's is the only one that he, you know, pawned off immediately for drugs and hadn't seen again. So pretty sad. But his family actually reached out to me after I made that video, so that was kind of made it all worthwhile. I think it was um an uncle, or his cousin was the person's uncle. Anyway, he was named after him too. So I don't recall that guy's name. It was a YouTube name, so I'm not sure if it's his actual name anyway. But really cool to kind of hear from the family. He was going to pass that on to other extended family closer to Sammy Stewart. So yeah, interesting player, and a way better player than he's remembered in history. He's got kind of a tarnished legacy because of his after baseball stuff, but he was very clutch. He became a different person in the postseason, which, it's not hard to have Orioles postseason records because he pitched in their two last World Series runs, and they haven't had many. So he's in the history books, but he's kind of buried, and that's why I think that kind of stuff's interesting, and just to kind of rehash those stories for new generations, it's a lot of fun.
And then another name that got brought up and he's kind of recent, was Joel Zamaya, who I guess injured himself playing Arkansas. And I remember when he came up at Detroit, and he was he was throwing 105 miles per hour, and he was just going to be this phenom. And then he got hurt, and of course, his career has never really panned out.
Yeah, he was insane. I remember him from, I think I was in high school at the time, so that was a name that had kind of been in my subconscious a little more. And I'd heard that at the time about him being hurt playing Guitar Hero. I reached out to some Detroit fans who actually said, "Oh, well, I think it was like a motocross incident, but he wasn't supposed to be doing any of that, especially in the postseason on his day off." So they used the Guitar Hero thing, possibly. He hasn't commented on it since, but I thought that was kind of a controversial thing to talk about, and just one of the weirdest things that's happened in baseball. And then I kind of coattailed off of that to other odd injuries, like Vince Coleman getting run over by the tarp. He was a St. Louis player who this was also in the postseason. They were out warming up, and I guess this was the days of 3-mile-per-hour tarp machine somehow injured the fastest player in the league besides Ricky Henderson, I believe, at the time. So thought that was a funny story. So it's just a lot of those stories in one on that video. That was a really fun one to do.
And I also had a good inspiration one with that. I think it was Jason Lindsay, the Dodger pitcher. It was like a journeyman. He had wait 16 years to finally get called up.
Yeah, John Lindsay. He was actually, I think when he was with the Dodgers, he was a DH. But yeah, that was one where I really got to take a minor league story and run with it. So that's kind of my bread and butter too. The minor leagues mean a lot to me because where I grew up, you're 6 hours from the nearest major league team, and that's in any direction. It's about 6 hours due south to Atlanta. It's 6 hours due north to Pittsburgh, 6 hours northeast to Baltimore, 6 hours northwest to Cincinnati. So minor leagues was very much all I had growing up. And so I like to give back to the minors because that's very much my identity as a baseball fan. Just in my area, it's pretty hard to get to a ball game. It's almost a vacation setup to just see Major League Baseball. Now I've been to a few, but it definitely my minor league games compared to my major league games is just I don't know. If I've got 100, I've got 100 to maybe 5. So yeah, it's that's very much my identity as a person and baseball fan. So
yeah, I was actually going to ask you that because it seems like you have more of a appreciation for minor league baseball. So I guess yes, you do probably appreciate that more than the majors, more probably because it's harder for you to get to those stadiums.
Yeah. It's just more real, and it's a really laid back atmosphere in the minors too. It's not as costly, so you feel like you can get to more games. It's accessible. I think that's a great word for minor league baseball. And I sit down and watch Major League Baseball, pretty much every night in the summer, but the minors have just kind of been special to me, and they're overlooked in a way, and by everyone, even by Major League Baseball. So it's I feel like that was another niche that I could cover, just by proximity, being around a lot of minor league clubs where I'm from. I actually grew up watching the Yankees rookie league a lot. The Pulaski Yankees up until 2019 when the Appalachian League went under. That was Calfee Park. That was a ballpark I got to a lot. So I've seen a lot of the Yankees stars here and there. They're no longer, the Appalachian League is no longer affiliated, but while it was, there was the Pulaski Yankees, the Princeton Rays. I got to see Wander Franco. That was really cool. That was, I think, the last year before it went under. The Bluefield Blue Jays, who were previously the Bluefield Orioles, that aided in my becoming an Orioles fan. So a lot of cool history there. It's, you know, if you don't have access to Major League Baseball, we had the next best thing, which was affiliated minor league baseball at its lowest level. So it's the most affordable. And, you know, you got the first access to these draft picks who are unknowns, but they eventually become, you know, these all-stars. Just, you know, there were some big names that went through the Appalachian League. So,
and just getting back to your videos, do you have any ones that you're planning in the future that you're researching right now?
So I've actually got one that's mid-upload. So I'm pretty excited about that. I wasn't going to push the issue. Yep, we got 89%, so almost there. It's called All Aboard the Submarine. It's a look back at historic submarine pitchers and how that pitching style got started. You know, that was when I was worried about having enough content with that, but it seems like with that pitching style, when one goes away, another one just carries the torch another decade or so. So it was, you know, I went back to the beginning. Cy Young is credited as the first pitcher to ever throw submarine, but it wasn't his primary style. It was just another pitch to him. He would go into the submarine style, back into overhand, and then through the years it kind of became its own monster. So guys like Dan Quisenberry are mentioned quite a bit. He's the thumbnail of the video. He's possibly the best to do it from an ERA standpoint, save standpoint, and he's the one who kind of made the submarine pitcher the dominant reliever type, you know. So I think it's cool. We'll see what other people think. I put a lot into that one just because there are a lot more unknown submarine pitchers than I was aware of. I thought it was going to be a quick, like, okay, Darren O'Day, and then all the way back to the future and 4 or 5 guys, but it's quite a lineage of pitchers, and it's really interesting. It's, you know, it's still going. If you went to look back at the knuckleball, you kind of hit this edge where it's like, it's kind of dying out now. So there's no current person to compare to these guys. But with the submariner, you can go right from Darren O'Day all the way back, and it's pretty cool. There was really only a couple years here and there over 8 or 9 decades where there wasn't a rostered submarine guy. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, and the Yankees actually had O'Day last year, and I was looking forward to him, but he pitched good early on, but then he got hurt and he just never came back, and he was never able to finish out the season. But even I think he was like 38 years old and they signed him, but he had a great year with Atlanta the year before, but unfortunately got hurt. But I think he'd have been great for the Yankees last year.
If there were a pitching style to prolong a career, besides the knuckleball, the submarine is definitely one. It seems like it saves their arms. I think they're known to have a few more back issues, but O'Day, he had a lot of years with my Orioles too. So he's one of my favorites, and I think he's who piqued my interest into this long legacy of submariners. You know, I'm not sure who his hero was growing up, probably Quiz. But yeah, it's really cool. O'Day's story is interesting because he was just an average high school overhand pitcher who didn't get drafted and went to a junior college, completely reinvented himself after an injury, and then it propelled him into, turns out he was a great submarine pitcher, even though he was just an average overhand pitcher. So it's a neat it's neat if you're open-minded enough to try something new. It rewards a lot of players, and that's really neat, I think.
Yeah, I remember when he was with the Orioles, like they would always bring him out to he would strike out A-Rod. The Yankees could never touch him. It was just so frustrating.
Yeah, they really specialize. A lot of them. The days of the loogie pitcher or the lefty only type reliever guys that would bring in to just face one batter, that's kind of gone away. But as close as you can get to that is, I think, the submarine guy, because just so few people see it. If there's any tape on any one hitter on that lineup ever striking out to a submarine guy, that's you ride the hot arm there, and you hope it benefits you late in the game. But yeah, it's a position that more often than not it's always going to be a late reliever or a closer, and it seems it makes sense if you play 8 innings hitting a certain type of pitch, and all of a sudden you're trying to hit this ball that's launched basically off the dirt. It causes problems, and it's really neat. It makes me rethink in my days, if I hadn't, after injuring myself as a pitcher, what if? Why didn't I think to pick up submarine pitching and give it a go? But who knows where I'd be? Probably still here.
Yeah, and you mentioned knuckleball. I saw you also did a video of that of that trying to be reintroduced into the game, because I think since Tim Wakefield left, I don't even know who throws it anymore.
Yeah, that one. You've really done your research, man. I appreciate that. That's really cool. Yeah, that was a brief, and by brief I mean one appearance guy that I was trying to hype up at the time, but it kind of backfired. Mickey Janis was an Orioles knuckleballer who last season came up, and I tried to time the video around the time he would possibly be called up, which worked, but he absolutely got murdered by the Astros. They pretty much threw him to the wolves. I mean, I think he faced Yordan Alvarez right off, and I'm pretty sure it was a three-run shot first pitch. So that didn't really work out, but I got a lot of great feedback from him. He is a really sweet guy. I think he's still bouncing around in independent minor league baseball. He's not giving up, and with the knuckleball, he could have 10 more years in him. So you never know when a club's going to want to try the experiment again. I think he's a much better pitcher than what he was able to show in, I think, 3 innings for the Orioles in a blowout. So really, really cool pitcher.
Yeah, it just seems like, but the way they draft pitchers now, like you have to throw over 95 and stuff like that. And that's probably how they're trying to groom him in the minors. I mean, it's good to hear that story, but again, I just think everyone's looking for the dollar signs, and this is how I got to get drafted. This is how I have to pitch. I don't know if too many people are going to, have the guts to experiment. Throwing a 67-mile-per-hour knuckleball.
Yeah, it's a lost art. I just like it and gravitate to it because it's different. But the same can be said about the submarine guys, knuckleballers. The screwball is a thing of the past. It's kind of funny how streamlined baseball pitching has become, when historically there were so many different methods to get an out on the mound, and now it's kind of just your power pitcher with, hopefully he's got a good slider. If not, we'll just limit his innings, and just give me fastballs on the black, and that's all teams expect. It's in the 3 true outcome baseball, it's either strikeout or home run now. So that possibly leaves less room for the junk pitch, but I get excited about it. I think it's just kind of a childhood thing. Is every kid, whether they say they did or not, they spent way more time working on a curveball that they'd seldom use in games than a 4-seam fastball. That just always seemed boring to me. So I'd be out there, trying to whiz a slider by my friends, and probably would have saved my arm a little bit if I'd have just, been a fastball change up pitcher in my day. But, live and learn.
Yeah. So did you pitch in a college or high school?
Yeah, high school. I was the fate of many a high school pitcher. I tore my labrum my junior year. It was actually a base running injury, and a head first slide where I caught a cleat in the shoulder. And then I was actually pitched in relief shortly after that, and that's when the full tear happened. I dislocated my shoulder in game. It was pretty gnarly. So yeah, I played. I mean, not to any sort of a high level, but what about you, James? Were you a baseball player?
Just little league, and I was terrible. I think the first year, my team actually got to the World Series, not because of me, but I happened to be on the team. But I think the whole year I may have had 2 hits and a double, and that's about it. And then I went to the next level, little league, after that. But it was kind of, at the time I was 13, so I was like the guys I was playing against 15-year-olds. So I was kind of
Yeah.
I was probably too young for them, but they had to move me on. So they put me at third base, and I was like, it's the hot corner. I'm like, I was just getting rocked there. So I just ended up quitting halfway through, because I was like, I stink. I'm not going to help the team here. So let me just get out of Dodge.
Well, Yeah, I can see it that way, but it sounds like at least you got an awesome experience.
I had one cool moment though. In the World Series game was so the World Series was like a best of three. We lost the first game.
Oh,
In the
okay.
second game, I did at least get a hit at the point of the game because we were down like 2-0, and I got a hit that tied the score 2-2. So that was
Mhm.
probably my greatest baseball moment on the field. We ended up, unfortunately, even though we tied the game, then the other team put up another run or two, and we ended up losing like 4-2, something like that. So, but for a second, that was like, that was my Mr. October moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually did not play little league per se. I played Dixie League baseball, which I think still exists in the South, but it's like the South's version of little league. It was pretty interesting. Up until like 10 years ago, they still had the rebel flag like on their patches. It was kind of kind of slow developing down there. Thankfully they've done away with that now, but it was interesting. Instead of Williamsport, you would go to Mississippi, I believe. And we never made it to Mississippi. We always got knocked out in the Virginia regionals, but it was something else. I don't. The South gets hung up on having its version of everything. I'm not. I think it's all gone to regular little league now. But good memories with that too.
Was anything other than, you mentioned the whole rebel flag thing, but any other differences from other standard little league divisions or?
I think it was more so in the tournament structure than any of the actual rules of play. I think the way that they did, the marketing was not nearly what Little League has. There's not the Dixie League World Series may be televised now on YouTube somewhere, but it's not. It doesn't have that national presence like Little League. But as of a few years ago, they were going strong as far as how many towns leagues were affiliated with them still. Hopefully they keep it going.
And just how you got started this with all your hats, like how many hats do you actually have, or do you still have your collection?
It's a small collection. I wish I'd have had the foresight to just to get into what I'm doing now a little earlier. It's a crisp 25 maybe. But compared to what I'm seeing like on Twitter, people will still tag me in, I don't know, hat Twitter related things. They'll be like, "Oh man, you Hat Billy, check this out. I scored 5 more." And I'm like, man, that would have taken me a year to just to prioritize within the bills to get that many hats. So mine are made basically just things I've grabbed over the years at games, so that at least there's a story to tell with all my hats. But I was foolish in that wasn't really something that was going to take off with YouTube when I got started, but I'm glad I somehow ended up where I'm at on that crooked road. But yeah, shout out to the guys spending a lot of money on hats. That was I started, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and that's what a lot of teams were uh trying to just raise money any way they could. The ballpark's closed. There's no certain start date for minor league baseball again. So a lot of those teams were just trying to sell their merchandise and stay afloat. So I jumped in then, and I grabbed a few before I completely changed the story of the channel itself.
Yeah, and you mentioned some family members got back to you with some of your videos. Any other good like feedback, whether it's on Twitter or just someone messaging you like, "Hey, I like your stuff," or "I like your site."
I think eventually maybe I'll strike gold with some a baseball player's family who's really active on YouTube. So we'll see. That's it's one of those things. Well, eventually, I feel like baseball YouTube is small enough that I'll eventually find someone. But just as far as the amount of friends I've made doing this, it's been incredible. I mean, even just bumping into you and being a part of this again, James, really appreciate it. It's been some really valuable conversation. What I've been able to do, just reconnecting with friends who are baseball fans and uploading some of that stuff, or complete strangers who just share a love of the game. It seems like there's a real brotherhood in baseball. So it's been awesome. It's been a good. I think I've been at it about a year and a half, 2 years, and it's just it's giving me some sort of fulfillment.
All right, and probably hopefully by now, if you're watching this, the submarine video should be available. So again, go onto your YouTube channel, MiLB Hatbilly. and learn about the Submariners. And I guess since you're here, you mentioned your Oil family was wrapping up a little AL East talk. They
Sure.
turned the season around, and they got a shot a couple games out of the wild card. So just, you think they're going to go for it? You think they'll be buyers, sellers, or you think this kind of stay status quo?
That's such a hot argument right now on like Orioles Facebook groups and things I'm a part of. I personally don't see the angle of buying too much. Our minor league system right now in Baltimore is just too good to make that deal, I think. And there aren't really a lot of appealing players out that I think our organization is really interested in. I think they're really sold on getting young players out of the draft and setting up a scheme to really, Mike Elias came from the Astros and rebuilt that whole situation the same way, just getting, really experienced, talented players early in the draft and trying to will and deal within the draft. So I don't think we'll be buyers or sellers per se. I think we'll be in a holding pattern. I really like what Adley Rutschman is doing. I was able to make his first game at Camden Yards. I've talked this whole time about how I don't get to many major league games, but I made sure I was there for that one. And that was a moment just watching him take it all in pregame. What a player, and his bat's not quite there, but I can tell he's just, even as a young player, he's got this leadership component and he's got a personality that I think we've been missing in a catcher for quite some time in Baltimore. So, it's exciting. I'm not going to say we're going to make the dance this year, but I think the rebuild has happened quicker than we had thought it would. Going into this season, I was like, losing record, well below 500, give it 2 more years. But it's an exciting team that's shown that they can win with less. So you like that, and you need that in Baltimore. It's not quite money ball, but it's the next best thing in a small market team like that. So
yeah, and Camden Yards is a great place. I've been there several times. It's awesome. Other than Yankee Stadium, I like PNC Park too. That's pretty cool. But
yeah.
Camden Yards is pretty cool. And I'm not going to root for you if you guys do too well because I'm still in the AL East. But it's just good to see have a winning team in town because it's just lousy. I know we're here with like the Knicks, they stink, and it rips your heart out. So again, I appreciate getting this time with you. Again, people can follow you on Twitter, MiLB_Hatbilly. Follow you on Twitter. And of course, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, get these cool baseball stories. MiLB Hatbilly. Again, Jake Whalen, appreciate your time. And I'll send you a Yankee hat. There you go.
Hey, that sounds good.